Hello, my name is Darren Thomas, and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques.com. In this video, we're going to talk about developing students' thinking skills. So why don't we take a look at this? So there are at least 4 different skills that you as a teacher can help your students to develop in order to improve their ability to think. And these 4 skills are clarification, basis, inference, and evaluation. So let's take a look at each of these individually. So clarification has to do with determining what the student knows and what the student does not know. An example of this in different fields are, for example, a KWL chart, what you know, what you want to know, and what you learn. That's what KWL stands for you. And also for those who are in the business setting, a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, etc. These are ways to clarify and to understand what you know and what you don't know, so that you can, of course, develop questions. Personally, I cannot tell you how many times as a teacher I've had students come to me and say, "Sir, I don't understand, I don't know, I don't understand, I don't get it." And I ask them, what is it specifically you do not understand? In other words, I'm trying to help them to clarify what the mystery is, because a vague statement that I don't understand doesn't help me as an educator. And the student will say, "I don't know what I don't know." In other words, even in seeking help, they do not know exactly what the problem is. So if you as a teacher can help your students to develop their ability to clarify things, it'll improve their thinking and it'll help you to be able to help them. Because the purpose behind clarification, as I've already mentioned, is to develop questions for things that we have identified that we do not understand. So this is one skill, helping students to figure out what they do not know and helping students to try to understand what they do know. Now, another way to develop thinking skills is to deal with the concept called basis. And basis is basically categorizing what you know. In other words, trying to put some sort of a qualitative value to what you already know. So, for example, one way of using basis is to divide what you know into 2 categories: facts and opinions. Facts, as you can see right here under this bullet, is things that are true and things that we can test and have found to be true. For example, a fact is Michael Jordan won 6 titles in the NBA. That is a fact. You can check the records. You will see his name there 6 times as a champion. Case closed. There's nothing to argue about. Opinion can be interesting, can be valuable, but it is untestable. You cannot verify it as true. You cannot make it a fact. Michael Jordan is a great player. Okay, that's very, very reasonable, but how do you quantify great? See, great is qualitative. 6 titles is quantitative. Often, quantitative terms can become facts, while qualitative things like he's the best, he's the greatest, are opinion. And this is why when we have opinions, we have to support them normally with facts. And so this is the difference. So as students are wrestling with concepts and ideas, if they can begin to put them in boxes, it helps their thinking. If they can tell the difference between a fact and an opinion, if you will. Shall we move on? The third way that you can help your students to develop thinking skills is through something called inference. Inference is drawing conclusions from data. And there are several different ways to do this, but we're going to talk about 2 of them, and that is inductive and deductive. Inductive is like, okay, several examples lead to a conclusion. For example, a student comes late to class every day. You can say, okay, based on this guy coming to class late 5 times, this guy is terrible at his time management. Now, that is inductive reasoning because you observed this student coming late to class 5 times in a row. And you made the conclusion based on the evidence of what you saw that this guy has poor time management skills because he was late 5 times. Deductive is the opposite. You start with the conclusion and you look for evidence to support it with examples. For example, if I assume students are late for class, I will start looking for evidence. And the first time he comes late, aha, I knew it. You have poor time management skills. You came late to class. So it's when you start with the premise and you look for support for the premise. Whereas with inductive, you get the evidence first and then you create a premise, or what we like to say in English, a main idea. Now, evaluation is the 4th and final way that you can help your students to develop thinking skills. And evaluation has to go with developing a criteria for judging a decision or an action or a quality, whatever you want to call it. So let's say I wanted to judge this food down here. In order to evaluate this, I have to make some sort of criteria that will define whether it was good or bad or okay, whatever I want to call it. So I might want to go by, I might make a criteria like, okay, color is important. And nutritional value is another criteria that I want to consider. And, number of calories, etc. As I make all these things that I use to judge it, that is how I know if it is good or bad, based on the rules that I established to say, this is what makes this food good if it has these traits. And if these traits are missing, that is what makes the food bad. All right, so down here we have some dragon fruit here in the middle. This is a common dish in Southeast Asia, if you will, and some kiwi fruit and some oranges. Let's move on. Now, what can we do to develop our thinking skills? So we know that you have basis, you have clarification, you have inferences, you have evaluation. These are thinking skills. What do we do to actually develop them? Well, there are 3 ways. Number 1, demonstrating. You as the teacher have to provide examples of clarification. You have to show how you do basis in your own life, where you explain the difference between facts and opinions, and where you show the students how this person talking in this article is sharing their opinion, whereas this over here, these are facts. You have to provide examples of evaluation. So when students want to talk about food and they want to say this food tastes bad, okay, based on what? And when they start to describe to you, okay, the taste, the price, these things like that, these things that are problems are the criteria they are using to judge the food. They don't even know it. You have to point out to them that the food is bad because you don't like the taste. Students miss that. You also have to provide questioning, where you develop questioning skills. Again, students will come to me and say, I don't understand. What is it you don't understand? I will ask them, and then they will, of course, struggle to explain that. And then the last one is verbalizing thinking. This is when, instead of letting your mind run wild in between your ears, you actually speak out how you go through the process of thinking critically. What is going on inside your head that helps you to form whatever opinion you have about a topic? These are things that students must see and experience. These are things students must do. So if students say, we don't like this, we don't like that, because normally when they want to share, it's negative. Okay, I need them to verbalize, tell me how you arrived at that opinion. And then they begin to fumble because they reach the opinion with their emotions rather than with their thinking skills. So through the verbalization process, it helps them to put the pieces together to try to understand why they have formed whatever conclusion they have. So, in conclusion for this video, we talked about thinking skills and we talked about clarification, trying to figure out what you know and what you do not know, helping your students with that. We talked about basis, dividing your information into different categories such as facts and opinions. Then we moved on to inferences, drawing conclusions from your examples. We talked about inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning. Those are the most common ones. And lastly, we talked about evaluation, when students set up a criteria upon which they judge some sort of concept, quality, or idea. And lastly, we talked about different strategies for developing thinking skills. Verbalized thinking, questioning, demonstrating. Students need to see this in the real world, people thinking critically, so that they are able to imitate these skills. So, my name is Darren Thomas. I'm the director of educationalresearchtechniques.com. I would like to thank you for watching this video. Take care.